Namaskar friends, welcome to Utkarsh online classes in English. Welcome again to the lecture of Education Psychology. I am your host Pawan Kumar Jha and welcome again. So today we are actually discussing about the development of educational psychology. So we will talk about today the development of educational psychology. So we will take about the brief historical trekking along the developmental path of educational psychology, how it has actually developed from various journey of the psychology, and then we have seen that actually it has come to the modern age where we have actually started and we have talked about and studied about the various kind of methods and various kind of things which we are going to help the education, help the learner, help the child in development or in his development as well as the various learning processes. So the people with us are Nikhil Kumar, Pooja Dhaka, Amrendra Pal, Layan Khan, Om Prakash Saini. Welcome to all. Welcome to our channel in English medium. People, this is the channel for English medium. So actually we are facilitating the English medium things so that the people who want the content in English medium, they should get the quality content also. On YouTube, on our Hindi medium channel, the Utkarsh classes Jodhpur, you will get the psychology lectures. From tomorrow, you will get the various kind of lectures on psychology also. So bear with us. So let us move on. So the first thing what we are studying, that the education psychology focuses on two aspects. First one is the pure and second one is the apply. So whenever we are talking about the education psychology, it talk about the pure science as well as the applied science. So when we are talking about the psychology, so pure psychology formulates various techniques for human behavior, for to shape the practical aspects. We will take on the applied aspects. So if we are talking about the education psychology, what we should take, whether we should take the pure or whether we should take the applied aspects. So whenever we are talking about the education psychology, we always talk about the applied aspects, because whenever we are talking about the pure aspect of psychology, we are finding various study of behavior, so that in different things what will we have. So again, share the live class, the people who are with us. Good evening to all. Good evening to all the students who have just come. Dilip Gujar, Radhe Paliwal, Sweetie Agarwal, Pukhraj, Jangir Karan, Ayan Khan. Good evening to all students. And if you want to you have to like the video also, and you have to share it to as many as people, because as we say, the knowledge is to be spreaded as a light. So let us move on towards the topic again. So whenever we are talking about the education psychology, it is applied psychology along with the clinical psychology, criminal psychology, industrial psychology, occupational psychology, and educational psychology. These all are the applied aspects of psychology. Then we are talking about the education psychology. So we have actually separated it as a subject, as a separate discipline altogether, as it poses in the present time. So we study, like I am studying and I am teaching this subject. So we are studying the subject as a separate discipline. Good evening to the people who have just joined us. Anshu Gujar, Pooja Jaini, Mohan Bhati, Radhe Pariwal, welcome to all to our channel. Share the video as much as you can. It is possible. So let us move on towards the next slide. So education psychology become a separate discipline altogether as it possesses itself in the present time. So whenever we are seeing the present time, what we are seeing, individuals who are interested in teaching, whoever is interested in teaching profession, they should study the education psychology. Like we are talking about the classroom teachers, we are talking about the managers, administrators, we are talking about various kind of educational psychologists. Everybody who is working for the general themes of education as well as the psychology, so they are the working in the education psychology field. So if we are talking about how it can be developed, so welcome again to the people. Anu Mishra, WWE fan. Okay, Raj Kumar. So people, welcome to the channel. Good evening to all. So the teachers, the managers, the administrators, the school inspectors, the principals, everybody actually uses education psychology. So it is a branch of applied psychology. So eminent scholars, scientists, have process contributed to the development of education psychology. So today we will see who are the various scholars who has actually changed the course of education psychology from the ancient time to the present times of the, and who is the father of education psychology, because we know that William Wundt is the father of psychology. Ayan Khan is asking what is applied aspects. So we will see the applied aspects that is being discussed here, and we will see it. Chemistry Guru, and then Raj Kumar, Anu Mishra, welcome again to all people. Abhay Goyal, namaste, good evening. So we are talking about the applied aspects. So whenever we are talking about the applied aspects, major applied field within the context of psychology. As we are talking about in the applied psychology, we have seen that the education psychology is nothing but one of the branches of applied psychology. It is an attempt to apply knowledge of pure psychology to the field of education. So if we are talking about the field of education, it consists of application of psychological principles and techniques. So we are applying the principles and techniques. Where we have to apply aspects, as you have asked Ayan Khan and other people are asking for the aspects. So if we are talking about the aspects, the principles and techniques of psychology is being applied to the human behavior. Because psychology is studying about the behavior, it is about the behavior, so we are studying the human behavior. And as we are studying the human behavior, what we are seeing? We are seeing that we are studying the human behavior in educational situations. So if we have to focus on, we will focus on the educational situations. So what are the educational situations and where we can actually apply it? So then we have to study the scope of the education psychology. In the next class, we will study the scope of the education psychology. It is being given by the Lindgren. It is being given by the Wordsworth. So in the next class, we will have the scope of psychology, which will explain which will completely explain what are the different kind of educational situations where actually we can apply the education psychology. So aspect is all about the principles and techniques of psychology is to be applied in various educational situations. So if we are actually taking these educational situations, we are seeing that educational psychology is the study of the experience and behavior of the learner, because the objective of education is to help the learner to become a social member. We have seen in the last class that NCF 2005 is talking about development of the child as a socially useful, productive, ideal social member. So as we have to develop the learner, develop the child, therefore education psychology is actually talking about the study of the experience and behavior. Behavior signifies the psychology. Whenever we are talking about the behavior, it signifies psychology. Whenever we are talking about the experience, it talks about the education part. Education part, and what is the subject? Subject is the learner. We always study the learner in the subject. So it is the relation which we are studying in environment of education. So all these we are studying in educational environment. So whenever we are talking about the applied psychology, we are talking about human behavior in education situations, applying of principles and techniques of psychology in education, study of the experience and behavior of the learner, relation of the learner to the educational environment. So these are the 4 points. If we want to see them, what we are seeing, the 4 aspects which we have seen. First one is application of principles and techniques of psychology. Second one is the human behavior in educational situation. Third aspect is study of the experience and behavior. Fourth is the concern is about the learner. And fifth one, it is in the context of educational environment. So these are the 5 aspects of applied psychology. So Nikhil Kumar is talking about NCF 2005. In the last class, I have discussed about the NCF 2005 and its objective. A separate class for the NCF 2005 and its objectives and various kind of things which has been said in the NCF 2005 will occur in the near future, as I will talk about the education psychology. In the meantime, I will take the pedagogy classes also. In those pedagogy classes, I will take the topics like NCF 2005, RT 2009, its amendment in 2012 and 2019. So we will see it. Krishna Mabi, Ratan Singh and various students are talking about the Hindi medium. Actually, this is the channel for the English medium, and we are just helping you to develop the English attitude in you, because the English literature teachers or the teachers who are teaching in English, they should improve their English. So this is just one effort to help those people who actually they are actually accepting the language as the English, and they are actually teaching in the English language. So people, bear with us. If you want to have the lectures in Hindi, you have to go to our other Hindi channel. For this channel, it is the only English medium, and the people who are actually studying in English language, they should start listening it, they should start studying it. What it will happen, it will actually increase and enhance their mental capacity. What happens if you are thinking in Hindi, then thinking in English and converted it into English? So what happens, it slows down your process. So we will see. Then we will move on towards, so these are the 5 aspects. I am repeating it again, the aspects of the applied psychology, why education psychology is applied. First one is we are applying principles and techniques of psychology. Second one, we are studying the human behavior in educational situations. Third one, we are studying the experience and behavior. And third one, this is all concerned about the learner. And fourth one, we are actually studying about the relation of learner with the educational environment. Then the next slide, we move on towards the development of education psychology, how this applied psychology have developed over time, and what are different psychologists, different things which actually happened during the development of the education psychology. What are the different things which has happened in the course of development of education psychology in the history of EP. So if we are trying to find the history genesis of education psychology, let us have the trekking along the development. So trekking, we are using the term trekking because as we go through this development, we will see how it has actually reached to the modern age. So modern age, where education psychology is so important that in every exam NCT has given that at least 30% of the curriculum in any any recruitment exam should be of the education psychology. And as National Policy of Education 2019 draft says, gradually the importance of education psychology for the teacher will improve, because they have suggested for a 4-year integrated program for the teachers, and they have actually discouraged that graduate students or postgraduate students should come into the teaching. They have said that after 12th, the education psychology should be taught for 4 years, then they should start teaching. because we are moving on towards from teaching to the facilitation of the learning. So facilitation of learning should be developed in the teacher. For that, education psychology is very important. So in modern age, which is relevant here, and emergence of psychology as a discipline in its own, or the education psychology as a branch of the discipline, we will see about this in this. So in the West, the first sighting of education psychology is found in the Socratic period of classical Greece, where Democritus, who has actually given the democratic ideas in the Greece, in 5th century BC has advanced the ideas of education, and he is propagated that the state should play the role in the life of in the education of the society. The Plato has actually conceived and conveyed this message. Annu Mishra is asking, are these facts important for the exams like CTET and UPTET? It is not important for the CTET, but it is important for the UPTET or the state TETs, because state TETs often ask facts, but in the CTET, facts are not important, but the concepts I am giving that are very important. And along with the concepts, I am also giving the facts. You can actually note them down. We are sending these everything we are teaching from 4th November on this channel and every channel of Utkarsh. We will send it to you in the Telegram app, as well as in our own Utkarsh app. So if the people who are watching us, they have not still downloaded the Utkarsh app, download the Utkarsh app. There are various kind of facilities which are available on it. Either you are paying for the course or whether you are taking the free course, you can have it. Also subscribe to our Telegram channel. The link will be given in the description of this video also, and in any video you find on our channel, description is being given. Actually subscribe to the Telegram channel, subscribe to our app, and have the benefit of the advantage of technology, because through technology I am reaching to you. Through technology, this content will reach to you, and at your home you can get the best content out of the India. We on this channel and on other channels also of Utkarsh platform, we are getting the renowned as well as the new faculties. So new faculties are not the faculties which you will say that they are new. They are new to our channel. But they are actually teaching from various years. They have eminence experiences, but they are new to the platform of online channel. Actually Nirmal sir has found various kind of jewels out of the pool of teachers, and they are presenting it on the YouTube channel. That is, the classes are also free. So let us move on towards the Pankaj Daya is asking how to do pedagogy of maths and science for CTET. So Pankaj Daya, watch the videos, my CTET videos on the Utkarsh channel Jodhpur. You will understand that pedagogy is actually altogether different game. It is not teaching methods. Teaching methods is actually a software approach, where pedagogy is about the system approach. So whenever we are talking about the pedagogy, so maths and science, everything is about the logical development of the child, and so pedagogy is called logical development pedagogy. So let us move on. So Democritus has started the idea of education being taken up by the Plato, and then we will say that Plato and Democritus were the contemporary of Socrates as well as his student. So then we will say that Democritus wrote about the importance of education in man's continuity of life process, as well as considered the influence of home and the family upon the child. So whenever we are talking about the Democritus, he has talked about how the continuity of life process is about the education, and how home and family is actually supporting the education of the child. You have any kind of doubt, you can ask in the question, then I will try to answer it. If the question, just have one caution, ask the question in the domain of the purview. If you are asking something else, I may not be able to answer that because it is not related to the content. Always ask the questions in purview of the content. Any kind of doubt you are getting in this content, you can ask it, and gradually we will move on towards the pure psychological subjects also that are the part of the education psychology. We'll move on towards the also. Yeah, doubt is there, you can ask the question. You have not given the question, the Radhe Paliwal and other language. So we will move on towards the, so he is talking about the self-control and the process of educating himself to teach the children. So children have to be taught, and therefore we have to talk about the education. First thing we are talking about that this is being held by the father, held it at the home and by the family. Ganpat Lal is asking about is it for the first grade psychology? Yes, it is helpful for the first grade psychology also, for second grade psychology also, for exams, for any kind of recruitment exam of teacher or eligibility test of teacher. In state, facts are often asked, but in central eligibility test only concepts are asked, the concepts which I am giving here. So you should grasp the concept also as well as various kind of fact also. So eventually there arose the importance of child rearing process. So what we are talking, what we are focusing on, Democritus has talked about the child rearing process, that at that time it is called rearing, but gradually we have started the term development. So we are actually helping the development of the child. So this is the important point which has been firstly mentioned by Democritus. So yeah, Ayan Khan is asking, is it helpful for REET? Yes, it is helpful for REET. We will have the concepts as well as various kind of facts for the REET also. And if I have missed any question, then you can ask the question again, because various comments are running on. So it may happen that I am just discussing something and in between them the questions actually you have asked and it has just moved on. So if I have not answered your question and it is related to this topic, then you can ask it. So Arvind Bhargav is asking what is the meaning of the psychology. You can, Arvind Bhargav, you can go to our first video that was tomorrow, that was yesterday, and you can go to that video and you can understand the meaning of the psychology. Today we are talking about the development of education psychology. So then come the in Arya society in India. At the same time, in India also, there is various kind of development. So if we are talking about the development at that time, education was conformed to a particular stratum or class. So class-wise education was available at that time. And as the class-wise education is available, so the people, the child is sent to the formal education at the age of 12 after a formal initiation. After the formal initiation, they sent to the schools, and schools they are called gurukuls. So they are sent to the gurus, the teachers' ashram, and these ashrams are called gurukul. These ashrams are called gurukul. So around the same time, we will see in India, there is a Gurukul system, and where they were trained to acquire various skills and later to attain self-realization, because in India we are talking about the idealistic kind of education. So in the idealistic kind of situation, what we will see the ultimate aim of education is self-realization. We are focusing on the self-realization. So whenever we are talking about the kind of education at that time in India, we are focusing on the philosophical nature than the psychological one. So we are seeing various kind of things at that time. Tech team, make the comments a bit lower font, because I am not getting the comments. Technical team. So is the class beneficial? Kirni is asking, I am not getting the, make it small. Technical team. Small. So at that time in India, the kind of education was philosophical nature, not the psychological nature. If the people, if it has been asked that at the ancient time, what is the kind of psychology in education? So there is no kind of psychology. Everything is about the philosophy at that time. We will talk about. So Rehan Khan Kirni is asking about, is it beneficial? Yes, it is beneficial for the first grade, second grade, REET, and any kind of recruitment exams which you are asking. So then Radhe Paliwal is asking about the Plato. Yes, I am just moving on towards the Plato also. So after the Indian system, we have seen the West, the classical names in the West are the epitome of education followed by Plato and Aristotle. During the period of Socrates, we have seen the Democritus. So Democritus had talked about, at the same time in India, philosophical system of education was developing on, but education psychology is not developed at that time. Then we are talking about the Plato and Aristotle. So the Plato and Aristotle has actually talked about the educational system, which we will see in the next thing. At the same time in India, we will see the educational system of the operative in ancient India, like the Krishna teaching the most obedient disciple Arjun in Gita and imparting the kind of education embodying the ethos of Indian social thoughts and Indian idealism. So Plato and Aristotle has actually talked about the Democritus education system. They have given the kind of education system as proposed by the Democritus. Whereas in India, we will see the kind of teaching the Krishna and Arjuna are talking about in the Gita. The same kind of thing are being taught in the Gurukuls also, where gurus or the teachers teach the various kind of students. Then, so this was the idealism at that time. Then we move on towards the Aristotle and Plato. So scattered throughout their works, Aristotle and Plato discussed about the following issues. So as one student had asked, so Radhe Paliwal is asking about the education psychology of the Plato. So Aristotle and Plato has talked very much about the education in their various books. The issues they have taken up, the ends of education, the advantages and disadvantages of being educated, the advantages and disadvantages of being educated, then the kinds of education appropriate for the different kind of people, the training of the body and the cultivation of the bodily skills, the possibilities and limits of moral education, the influence of the family, the role of the state in education, the professor of the teaching. So again, Radhe Paliwal is asking, who is Plato and Aristotle? Plato and Aristotle are the philosophers. We have just seen that they are also philosophers, but they have talked about various issues which are relating to the psychology. Like if we are talking about the Krishna and the Arjun, they have talked about also about the psychology, but the psychology is the karma psychology, or we call it as, now we call it as the positive psychology. But the education psychology was being taught by the Aristotle and Plato, Arastu and Plato in Hindi we call it. So Aristotle and Plato has also talked about what kind of various discussions they are talking about. They are the philosophers, they are from the various Greek followers, and what we will see the ends of education, the advantages and disadvantages of education, the kinds of education for different kinds of people, the training of the body, cultivation of body skills, limits of moral education, influence of the family, role of the state, the profession of the teaching, the relation of teacher and student, the means and methods of teaching, the nature of learning, the order of learning, the emotional aspect of learning, learning apart from the teachers. So they have talked about various issues of education in context. Today we all say about that these are the issues of education at the contemporary time, and now psychology is actually studying these issues. So Rehan Khan Kirni, I haven't got your question, what you are asking. Ranu Seni is talking about what is introspection. We will talk about the psychology and the development of psychology also. In that lecture, we will talk about the introspection various. So B.S. Yadav is talking about psychology is the branch of philosophy. Yes, psychology is the branch of philosophy, and we will talk about it later. Meenakshi Sen is talking about that we will do the questions according to the first grade. Yes, we will do the according to the first grade. After the completion of these topics, I will talk about I will take up the various questions also before the grade first paper. So Aristotle and Plato, they are the philosopher, they are from the Greece, they have talked about these issues which are the issues of educational psychology. Then we move on towards and we come to 17th century. After around 400 BC to 300 BC, there is not very much evidence and development of education psychology. Later evidences which we got that are the writings of the 7th century philosophers. So Arvind Bhargav is talking about what kind of education at Gurukul. I will take up the education in India. I will take up that issue also. What are the development of education in India, and then we will say. Yeah, Pallavi Manglik, you are absolutely right that the Plato and Aristotle both have touched almost all the important topics of psychology, and today we all know that we all study like the John Locke or the Descartes or various kind of pastology, DV, all other psychologists or other educationists who have studied, they have studied the same thing. Then please try to teach in mind map style like diagrams and short sentences. Actually, you will make those sentences that will be good to you. Let us move on towards the second. Then in the 7th century, we will see the first philosopher was Descartes. So Descartes is talking about Jahangir Khan is asking about the short notes. Actually, these are the short sentences. This is the summary of total development of education psychology. I have summaried it. The sentences are only 2 sentences per slide are there. So it is actually a mind map. It is actually a short sentence. And then we will move on towards the question also. Then we are talking about the Descartes believed that mind was equated with the innate ideas, which does not arise from the experience. So here we started about the innate ideas. Innate ideas, rather than the ideas are considered as the basis of true knowledge, the scientific character of psychology remained a doom at that period, because people are talking about the innate ideas in the 17th century, or the second one is the John Locke. John Locke in the same century renowned as empiricist. We will talk about what is empiricism. Initiated the first wide and continued protest against the form of faculty psychology current in his time. So in the 17th century, they are actually talked about revolting against the psychological aspects of education. They have talked about the innate ideas, which are the ideas after the birth. They have talked about the empiricism, like if we are talking about the John Locke, what we will see, they both are from the 17th century. So 17th century, we will say the John Locke and the Descartes. So what we are seeing that John Locke argued that faculties do not function by themselves. He argued about that the faculties does not function themselves, therefore he termed this as tabula rasa, which in English means the plain slate. Thank you, Pallavi. We are seeing that various kind of things are blur, so work on it, why it is getting blur. So knowledge is gained when the mind becomes functional as it comes contact with the external environment. So what we are seeing, the external environment is being giving the mind various kind of functions, and therefore he said that the philosophy is tabula rasa. So tabula rasa, which means plain slate, it means that the child who is from the birth is actually plain. and teacher writes on it. So the teacher or environment writes on the plain slate. So at birth, the human mind does not perform but is potentially sensitive to impressions from the outside through the senses. So everything the child gains comes from the outside through the senses. So this is one of the very important questions. John Locke, it is the theory of the naturalism. It is the theory when we will talk about the various kind of various kind of philosophies. What we will see that the things are coming from the outside through the senses, that are the philosophy of empirical, that are the philosophy of various kind of naturalist. So Anu Mishra is talking about spoon feeding. It is not spoon feeding. We are not talking about the spoon feeding. It is about everything which is coming to the child is after the birth. Before the birth, the child doesn't have anything. So innate ideas are the is being given by the Descartes, whereas tabula rasa was given by the John Locke. So let us move on towards the next slide. So empiricism. Next slide is about the empiricism. So John Locke has given this term, and empiricism is about the experiences. So whenever physically an individual is getting experiences, this philosophy is called empiricism. So John Locke has talked about that child is tabula rasa. So if it is tabula rasa, that everything which is being written on the child's brain, child's tabula, child plain slate, that is from the environment. So he says that through the empirical processes of experience, the child receives sensory experiences from which simple experiences are built into complex ideas. So gradually, this has, Radhe Paliwal is talking about the various kind of philosophies. I will come to the philosophies also. Today we are just talking about the education psychology, then we will move on towards the psychological domains, then we will move on towards the philosophical domains also. So let us focus on this. So he talked about the empiricism, he talked about the experiences are converting into complex ideas. John Locke has said that, and this has given the idea to the Piaget and Vygotsky that constructivism can be there. Because if constructivism is there, that means that child can construct their own knowledge. The Piaget has criticized John Locke also, because he has said that the child is not a plain slate, but he has accepted the idea that child is constructing the complex ideas from the experiences. From the physical experiences, it is converting it into the complex ideas. It has given the concept of schema to the Piaget. So when we will study the Piaget, we will study the schema and we will see the relation again there. But here what we are seeing that through the internal activity of reflection and ideas, he is converting the complex idea, he is converting the experiences into complex ideas. These experiences are coming from the sensory impressions. They are the 5 senses, from our eyes, from our ears, from our various kind of skin receptors. Then we are getting it from the taste and the smell. So they thus arise all knowledge, all values, all learning. This learning by experience come to be known as empiricism. In the last class, I have talked about that animals are sentient. Whereas plants are not sentient. Like often people say that why vegetarian is all about that animals, because plants are also living beings, so we should also not eat plants. No, they are not sentient. Animals are sentient. Sentient means they have consciousness, they have developed nervous system and they have receptors which receives information. So they can feel the pain. Therefore, it means that they can feel the pain. Anju Kumari is asking the meaning of the plain slate. Plain slate means the child is born with no knowledge, with any kind of senses. Tabula rasa concept, the John Locke talks about, John Locke considers it, believes that when the child is born, everything will be written from the experiences from the environment by the teacher. That is the plain. So how we are getting it? We are getting from the receptors. So therefore there are 5 receptors. First one is eye. Second one is ear. Third one is nose. Fourth one is skin. And fifth one is tongue. So they are the 5 receptors. From that we are getting the various kind of informations. So these are the receptors and therefore we can sense. And as we can sense, therefore we are sentient. So animals are sentient, therefore they can get the experiences. According to John Locke, child knows something. No, Jangir Karan, child doesn't know something. Tabula rasa means child is a plain slate. He doesn't know before the birth. Everything comes after the birth. Then comes the modern definition. So if we are talking about the modern definition, modern psychology, a science of behavior like other sciences has its origin in the feeling of curiosity of the primitive man. So curious inquiries of the nature and its events ultimately gave to the physical biosciences of modern age. So according to modern definition, we have seen that psychology is a science of behavior. We have seen in the last class that psychology is a science of behavior. Mind can be analyzed functionally into different mental processes, cognitive and emotive, and is expressed through the behavior of the interactive person. Hence, psychology is a science of behavior. So whenever we are talking about the education psychology, we have to now talk about the behavior. So modern definition talked about psychology as a scientific discipline. This led to the application of theories, branching and specialization. So when we have started studying the psychology as the branch of behavior, we have taken up all the issues, all the aspects proposed by the Aristotle, by Socrates, the Democritus, the Plato, the Descartes, the John Locke. So we have moved on towards this, and the one branching which we are now studying, both qualitatively and quantitatively, sophistication of techniques, are the branching of educational field, which is termed as educational psychology, which emerged as a separate discipline after the origin of behaviorism. When behaviorism come into the branching of psychology and application of psychology in the educational situations, the separate discipline of education psychology had started. So Pallavi Manglik is saying that the one who can sense is sentient. That is the thing. It is very correct. So animals can sense, therefore we don't want to eat them if we want to become the vegetarian. And the plants cannot have senses, because if we are cutting them, they will just have a reactionary process, but they don't have the senses, they don't feel the pain. But we people or the animals can feel the pain. So next we are talking about the education psychology emerged as a separate discipline involving the general principles of experimental psychology applied in the field of education. So it has developed as an applied field. So if we are talking about the applied field, we will say first name which came into scenario was the pastology. So he is believed to be the force behind education psychology because he has started the various kind of studies. But his student and friend Frederick Herbert has actually collaborated with him, and one more student, John Dewey. They all have started the progressive movement. John Dewey is called the profounder of the progressive movement in education. So Pestalozzi has talked about, he has emphasized education as a process of drawing out the functional mind of the individual. So he talked about that functional mind should be started. So we always say that Pestalozzi have started the functionalism in education, not in psychology. In education, functionalism has started with the Pestalozzi when he has talked about the study of Titchener, the study of James, its application in the educational field. So he talked about drawing out of the functional mind of the individual. The Frederick Herbert, another populist educationist, have talked about the approach based directly and avowedly upon the psychology. Avowedly, it is one of the new words, avowedly, so you should Google it also. It means they have openly talked about why psychology is not the part of the education. If we have to impart good education, psychology should be the basis. They have actually talked about the application of psychology. They have appealed to the various psychologists that therefore that you should work for the education also, so that the educational processes should work upon. So avowedly, that means he is very critical to the psychologist. He is openly discussing about why psychologists are not working for the education purposes, and he has initiated, he is one of the force behind the progressive movement. So Pestalozzi, Herbert, and then the Galton. Third one is the Galton. So we are talking about the end of the 19th century till the beginning of the 20th century. A number of famous psychologists have started, like the Dewey. So comes the Galton, Francis Galton, who is the oldest founder of educational psychology. Still the psychology is not established as a subject. Radhe Paliwal is again asking that what is education means. So education, we are talking about the education in the last class. We have talked about the education, educatum, through the Genesis. So Radhe Paliwal, you can go to the last lecture after this lecture, and then you can study the education in detail. Together we are talking about the development, so we should focus on it. And education psychology, so he conducted the first experimental investigation of the associationism. The famous theory of behaviorism, which is based on associationism, first experiment on animal was conducted by the Galton, Francis Galton. Therefore, sometimes he is called the force behind the behaviorism. The first known psychologist behind the behaviorism was Francis Galton. So he has talked about the associationism, he had talked about the reaction time, he have talked about the sensory equity, various kind of equity of the senses. So he has talked about these things. And Galton has actually studied various kind of debates in education psychology. That means he has talked about the nature-nurture problem, he has talked about the mental inheritance of the ability, which later becomes the intelligence. He talked about the studies of twins, he talked about the realizations of individual differences, he talked about the various mental and physical developments. So Radhe, again, it is not only about the development, it is the education is about various things. It is about the mental inheritance, it is about the nature-nurture problem, it is about the study of the twins. We are seeing various kind of things. Then he talked about the psychological test and their statistical interpretation. Later, the correlational studies was taken up by the Carl Pearson, one of his contemporary. He has taken up the correlational studies and given the Carl Pearson coefficients. Now we give the evaluation, various kind of thing like the nominal, ordinal, various kind of test, normative test, grading system, percentile system. They all are being developed by the Carl Pearsons, and they are now available as the rating scales and the questionnaires in the field. So what we will see? We will see that after the Galton in 1885, Ebbinghaus has come. Ebbinghaus now started talking about the memory. And within the span of 6 years, events of importance like objective management, child psychology, learning, all took place. So after the development of memory psychology, the psychology being proposed by the Galton, major studies have started, and at that time in the France, we will see the Alfred Binet. Alfred Binet has started the first intelligence testing in 1904, and he has developed with Simon, Binet has developed the first Binet scale in 1905. So we have moved on towards the new areas also, like the memory, like objective measurement, psychology, learning experiments, then the intelligence testing, Binet, Simon IQ scale. So we have seen it. So then comes the John Dewey. He is the contemporary, and during the situation, what we will see, John Dewey contribution is rather noteworthy. Along with the pastology, he was the student of pastology. Along with the pastology, along with other educationists, he have started the progressive movement. Who has actually revolutionized this progressive movement is the revolution of education according to the psychology. And some 10 to 12 years from 1900, before and after, we will see the Edward L. Thorndike. He has given the revolutionary law of learning and experiments like trial and learning. So, trial and error methods, various kind of the philosophies according to the psychology. So a renowned psychologist like John Dewey, like the Ebbinghaus, like the Binet, Simon, Edward L. Thorndike, all have started working for the working for the same thing. Pallavi Mangika asking about how the question format will be based on this topic. After the class, within 2 hours, the questions of this topic will be available to you on the app, on the Utkarsh app, as well as on the Telegram channel also. So bear with us and have the question, ask the question there. Tomorrow's question, tomorrow I will discuss the yesterday's question and today's question also. So he has started the things. So what we have seen, Thorndike was possibly the first man to be called the educational psychologist in the modern sense of the term. He studied art and science of learning in the pure term, systematically and consistently. He, with the Wordsworth, it is very important, Wordsworth and Thorndike together talked about the transfer of training, which becomes the later theory in the transfer of learning. Therefore, Education Psychology, the book being published in 3 volumes by Thorndike between 1930 and 1940. So this is the first book which is being written with the name, and therefore Thorndike is called father of education psychology. Edward L. Thorndike is called father of education psychology. He studies various related fields of education, new vistas to be tracked by later educational psychologists. His study, his book Education Psychology is still called Bible of the education psychology, or we can call it, in Indian terms, we can call it the ancient epic for education psychology. It has talked about everything prior to it, whether the questions raised by John Locke, Descartes, various kind of philosophers like Plato, Aristo, or Socrates, or Democritus. So then we have he has given these all things in the 3 volumes. He has written 3 books, all named with the education psychology, volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3. So Pallavi is talking about do we learn all the philosopher names with their philosophy, or will you give some most important? No, these all are the most important. I have not given all the philosophers. I have just taken up the, if you are going through, if you are making the notes, you will see that only 10 philosophers are there. So they are about the education psychology. So you have to learn all these 3 and philosophies of them also. And they are the questions which are being asked again and again. We will see the question on the DV, we will see the question on the pastology, we will see the question on the Thorndike, we will see the question on John Locke, on Descartes, on Plato, on Aristotle. We will see the questions regularly of these. So we have talked today about the development of education psychology. People, if you like this lecture, gives the thumbs up, like the video also, share this video as much as possible so that we can spread the knowledge to the vast world. Help us to achieve this goal of educating every single individual with the quality education. Be with us. Download the app if you have not still on the Utkarsh app. Subscribe our channel also, Telegram channel also. Be on the Facebook also. So people, namaste, good evening. We will meet again in the next class. Namaskar.
Click on the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel. Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Download Utkarsh app from Google Play Store. Utkarsh app is one-stop solution for your competitive exam preparation with lots of unique and amazing features like create your own custom test, add YouTube videos in app library, add web reference link for quick revision, make your own custom flashcards. For each chapter, you can give online test and analyze your performance. So download Utkarsh app now.